Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining and welcome to Talking Tech at Microsoft Episode 3. My name is Sean Floyd. I'm a global black belt for Microsoft Viva in Australia and New Zealand. And just to speak to that for a second, global black belt is Microsoft speak for specialist. And it comes with a focus on product incubation and working in depth with customers to understand how they can get the most value out of these incubating products, and in this case, Viva, and how Viva can be developed to better fit the customer and market needs. So as the slide here mentions, and I just mentioned, I'll be talking today about Microsoft Viva. I would assume that a good amount of folks watching this are familiar and know what Viva is. But for those of you who might not be familiar, Viva is Microsoft's employee experience platform. It's a new category of solution. It brings together the sort of disparate elements of how we think about the employee experience today, and pulls them together into a unified experience within teams. So with my time today, I'll get into a bit more of what Viva is and in more detail, why it exists, how it fits in today's peculiar and unique way of work. And the slide I'm sharing now, this gets us a little closer on all these concepts in a sort of messy way, if you'll bear with me for a second. But I show this admittedly very selective timeline and history of the last several years from Microsoft's point of view to set the stage for today's chat and to weave my own 2 cents into the story of the value and the purpose of Viva. So as we look at this slide, the first event here is 2015, when Microsoft acquired a Seattle-based startup company called Volumetrics. This was about a year or so into Satya Nadella's tenure as CEO. And really, I think it can be boiled down into one of many big bets on the future of work, as Microsoft saw it at that time. Not sure that phrase was used all that much back in 2014, 2015, but in hindsight, we can say that. Volumetrics was a SaaS-based company with a heavy dose of professional services as well. And in essence, what it did was make sense of an organization's email and calendar activity at an aggregate level, and use that data to quantify and to address common issues like overload or employee engagement, process inefficiencies, these kinds of things that traditionally consulting or professional services firms would address. And so I joined the Microsoft Volumetrics product team shortly after that acquisition. And I recall the most intriguing and exciting part of joining the team for me was that, like, while this was a groundbreaking concept, at the same time, it was the unexpected obviousness, for lack of a better term, or simplicity of the concept that struck me. So Volumetrics wasn't creating anything new. It was simply leveraging a company's own digital exhaust, as we called it, from everyday operations, everyday collaboration, to provide quantified and provide powerful insights. And more than that, its mission was to solve these problems that companies have had since the advent of email, basically, by using this empirical data. When up until then, it was relying on surveys, relying on focus groups to get this sort of information. So this data source, the meetings and emails that we used every day, was just sitting there, untapped potential for organizational value. And so as an engineering and analytics nerd, self-admittedly, the possibilities of the data fascinated me, but what I really loved was the elegance of the solution. So fast forwarding along this timeline, keep indulging me, please. The Teams was launched shortly after, 2017. Another big bet for Microsoft on what the future of work would entail, right? Think of the other things that are happening during this time. Massive migration to cloud and Exchange Online. Volumetrics matured. It became Workplace Analytics, if that name rings a bell, as well as My Analytics was a sister product, which you're probably familiar with as a result of daily briefing emails letting you know about your internal network and time and meetings, etc. So all of this is dependent on, again, this vision of what the future of work looks like. Over the years, the category evolved. It's become a game changer for companies that wanted to be more data-driven, more focused on efficiency and productivity. And so now, here we are at the latest evolution. If we skip those darker blue dots, we'll come back to those. And think about February of last year, when Microsoft Viva was formally announced. Workplace analytics and my analytics, those two collaboration-focused views of data within an organization at an individual level, those have morphed into what is now Viva Insights. And my team's role changed as a result into incubation of the full Viva suite. Again, we'll get into that more in a second. The very roundabout point I'm trying to make here is that personally, I'm as excited and as intrigued about what Microsoft Viva can do and the value that it will provide and the solution that it represents in the same way that I was with Full Metrics in 2015. In that the principle of Viva is about leveraging the work that is already happening within your organization, leveraging the systems that are already in place and that you're already using daily to address fundamental universal issues at organizations around the world, just like Full Metrics. So it's just at a grander scale. It's another massive bet on the future of work. So if we consider what those two dark dots represent, right? The upending of traditional, mostly in person, mostly in office, on-site work that I'm sure everyone here can relate to. Microsoft Viva and the employee experience is more relevant now as you think about it from an organization standpoint than it ever has been before. So let's think about the far right part of that timeline. This is where we sit now, well into the pandemic and with a bit of experience under our belt, living in the new world of work. What I'm showing here are the key takeaways from Microsoft's annual Work Trends Index report. This was released in March of 2022, I believe. And I imagine many of you watching this might have encountered this in some form already, possibly even on a previous episode of Talking Tech at Microsoft. But it crops up regularly in these sorts of talk tracks for a reason, which is, in short, that today and moving forward in a world where hybrid workforce or the hybrid workforce is the rule rather than the exception, more or less, employees expect and prioritize different things in their work lives than they used to. And companies and leaders need to be equipped with the policies, the tools, the skills to make those expectations a reality. So picking out a couple of highlights from what we have here, right? Employees are more focused on their health and well-being than ever before. And their organization should actively support this in both the resources and people they have access to, as well as the reinforcement of that priority by giving people the tools to check in on their own mental health, to check in on their own workload in pursuit of this prioritization. Two, there's a growing push for fully or mostly remote work arrangements. And this is not going to stop as a trend. Companies should be focused on helping make this a feasible option from a technical standpoint, for one, but also one that is a viable approach for the employee to have a fulfilling experience at work and in their role. So tied to these 2 points that we just talked about, employees are increasingly feeling that remote collaboration norms have a tendency to cross boundaries, to impose on their personal lives. So this is the flexible or hybrid work does not equal always on point you see there. For example, I'm sure I'm not the only one who might feel compelled to respond to an after-hours email or a Teams message from a team pretty much immediately, right? So establishing these collaboration norms, these barriers, these boundaries from an organizational and a personal standpoint is important. And one last one that really jumped out to me, because I think this is where technology itself should really be the core part of the solution, is what you see on that second point there. People managers are left hanging, and they're left in the middle. They feel like they want to do more for their people, to enact change, to support the employee experience, to support the new way of work, but they don't have the resources. And so all of these current trends and friction points are part of why Viva exists. Microsoft recognized the complexity and, frankly, the paradoxes in some cases of delivering a quality employee experience in a remote working world. And if we go back to the 2020 shift to remote work point on the timeline slide, because we experienced it ourselves. We were developing various different employee experience focused capabilities, really in a siloed approach. And in a meta sort of way, we saw the importance and the opportunity of unifying these capabilities for ourselves and ultimately delivering that to our customers. So Viva's launch in early last year, February, during the middle of the pandemic was not a coincidence. It was expedited really out of necessity because of the need for a comprehensive digital employee experience in this remote and hybrid work era. The quote on the slide here from Seth Patton, Viva general manager, he sums it up pretty well. And I'll just emphasize the bold point here, which is that the goal of Viva is that regardless of where people are located, we give them the tools they need to be successful. And that's really, in a nutshell, what Viva is setting out to do. Note the second half of that quote as well. We'll touch on some of those points, sort of the elements of what it takes for an employee to be successful. And what I really like about that quote we just looked at is that it does such a good job of spelling out the concept of what we call the employee experience platform, which is what Viva is, so succinctly. It's about putting the employee at the center, quite literally, if you look at the slide, but from a support and resource and day-to-day experience point of view, and enabling their success using the tools that the platform provides. So across the various elements of the employee experience, which really can be thought of as the accumulation of smaller individual moments and interactions across an employee's entire tenure with an organization, and in particular as it relates to these core pillars we're looking at, you'll recognize that there's a direct link between that quote we looked at and some of these pillars that we're thinking about. So let's go through these. Let's think a little bit practically about them. The first, well-being and engagement, right? Like what is a good employee experience from that perspective? I think my take on that would be that employees want to be able to contribute substantially and to be involved in the goings on without being burned out, without being stretched thin and always on. Growth and development, employees want to feel like they're growing and improving. They're attaining the career trajectory that they have set out for themselves and expect of themselves. Purpose and alignment, they want to understand and to see how what they do on a day-to-day basis contributes to the success of their team, of their business unit, of the overall organization. I think that's a valid and reasonable request. Culture and communications, employees want to have that transparency from leadership. They want to feel connected to their colleagues and to their organization in general, and they want to have a voice on the things that matter most to them. And lastly, knowledge and expertise. So this is, to me, around feeling supported. Employees want to know that they have the resources within their organization to do their jobs well, and they want to be able to access them when they need them, as soon as they need them. And another thing I'd add to this, I guess, is the employee doesn't want to have to navigate to a dozen different surfaces or places in order to get these experiences. They want these experiences to be easy to access and to come to them, right? For the experiences to be available where they're already working, where they're already spending time. And so that's what Microsoft Viva does, in essence. Those pillars we just talked about, they not coincidentally align pretty directly with what we're showing on the slide here. And so today, Microsoft Viva is a platform consisting of 4 what we refer to as modules, with a 5th one on the way. We'll go through each of these in a second. Each of these modules is an application within Microsoft Teams, and each of these delivers elements of the employee experience by providing new capabilities to the user or to the employee, as well as by leveraging the existing capabilities that you're already investing in, both from Microsoft and from other platforms as well. Let's dive into them. Viva Connections is the first one, and this aligns to that culture and communications component that we talked about just a second ago. It's a company-branded employee app within Teams. Sort of akin to a company intranet is how you can think about it. We tend to call it the gateway to the employee experience, where the employee has access to personalized news, communications, tasks, key people and resources that apply to them in their role or in their geography or their function. And it represents a single curated destination for employees that can be configured across specific roles or personas, right? It pulls in existing capabilities from SharePoint, Yammer. It can link to other social feeds like Twitter, for example. And it pulls all of your communications together into this pre-configured app. And it has the capability to be designed for mobile as well as desktop workers, right? It's mobile friendly. I guess, what does all this mean? This means that leaders can communicate and engage with their employees directly. Employees can get easy access to the tools and resources they need all from one place, instead of having to navigate to 9 different places to knock out the weekly tasks you have around entering time or logging into a job site, or recording expenses, booking travel, etc. So those tasks can be pinned, can be made as sort of in-app experiences. And lastly, it acts as a launching pad to the other Viva modules. Right? You'll have jumping off points available for the employee on this native company branded employee app to jump off to the various other parts of Viva. Excuse me. For Insights, as we move down the line, is aligned with the productivity and well-being component of the employee experience. Right? It's pulling this into a unified Viva Insights app. And this is the current iteration of Volmetrics, the company I was talking about on the timeline slide. Right? So this is the latest evolution, bringing in workplace analytics, right? That aggregate view of a company's collaboration and ways of working data, and my analytics, that individual personal view of my own ways of working, my own networking. And so we're pulling that under the same umbrella and making it available via a Teams app at several different levels, right? So at the individual level, at the manager level, at the leader level, as well as a query, a web-based query tool as well to get specific about the type of questions we want to answer using this data. So I guess what I'm trying to land on here is that this is a valuable way for all of the different levels of the organization to understand, to have that data democratization. For me as an individual to use the personal insights as almost a Fitbit for work, to understand how I'm going with respect to the collaboration and ways of working habits that I expect. For a team manager to be able to understand after hours or workload at an aggregate level for his or her team and to make the appropriate interventions. And then for org leaders to have a view of entire trends across their organization and to pull the levers accordingly where there are opportunities to do so. Viva Topics focuses on that knowledge and expertise aspect. It does this by applying artificial intelligence across, I like to use the word, the landscape of content or documents and other information within your organization. And what it does by doing this is it identifies knowledge hubs, experts, and it automatically organizes these things into shared topics or nodes, you might think of. And they have topics pages automatically created for them as well. So think of it like Wikipedia, where artificial intelligence does the first draft on all of that information, all of that content within your organization. And then links to these topic pages are then surfaced right in the flow of work within Office and Teams. As I navigate a Teams channel and catch up on posts, there might be essentially a link to a Wikipedia page of one of these topics. And they're also searchable and available in a number of other Office services. So this allows employees to easily locate and access the collateral, the resources, and the experts that they need to have access to be at their best and to deliver in the way that they want to. Viva Learning allows employees to discover informal and formal learning in the flow of work. It's essentially an aggregator of all of the content within an organization's learning catalog or learning library. So from LinkedIn Learning, Microsoft Learn, your in-house LMS, third-party training content or other providers, or even internally generated content that you host on SharePoint, for example. This is all in one place. We're pulling all of that into a single surface for employees to be able to access and to get after that training quickly and with a search function and easily. And it's in the flow of work. I've said that a few times now, I think. And it's using personalization capabilities and recommendation capabilities, as well as powerful social features like peer-to-peer recommendations, sharing in Teams chats, Viva Learning tabs within a Teams channel, and progress tracking reporting even within the team, from the manager level. And then lastly, the next module in line to join the Viva suite is ally.io, which is an OKR or objectives and key results tool that addresses the mission and purpose pillar that we talked about. It's seeking to connect the goals of the individual up to that of the organization as a whole, as well as connecting it to the outcomes and the output of the team and the function and the business unit, et cetera. So using this, it helps enrich how people and teams can come together to establish those objectives, to align on the business outcomes they need to achieve. And again, it provides that purpose and that connective tissue for me to understand what it is that I'm doing that has a direct impact and how it has a direct impact on the bigger picture of the organization and of the team. So in the next year, ally.io will be brought into the Microsoft Cloud, evolve within its existing integration in Teams, and be woven into Viva and Microsoft 365 more broadly. Okay, well, so there was a lot there, and we barely scratched the surface, quite frankly, of what Viva is and what these modules look like and can do. But I think just to leave you with a bit about Viva, the two things I like to reinforce and hammer home are what I consider to be the themes and guiding principles of Viva. And those are, one, that it's in the flow of work, right? People are already spending their time in teams, and increasingly so, particularly in the age of remote and hybrid work. And Viva brings the employee experience into teams where those employees are already spending their time. And number two is extensibility. And really want to emphasize that Viva is not about ripping up and replacing existing systems of record or systems of work. Viva connects with platforms and data sources that you already use, right? The non-comprehensive set are along the bottom of the slide here. And this exists to be able to maximize the investments you already made while providing that unified, holistic experience for employees. Okay. So as Viva continues to mature and develop, we're going to see, I think, significant integration and connective tissue across these different modules. Think of, for example, a view of time spent in learning activities in your personal Viva Insights view, or maybe nudges to take a particular training based upon your collaboration habits and overall interaction with the Microsoft Graph. These sorts of cross Viva scenarios are really just beginning to be explored. So I'm personally excited to see where this goes, and hopefully after some of the information we've walked through today, you will be too. Well, thank you. With that, I'll wrap. And I think that we have some questions in the chat, so I'll see if I can't take some of those right now, and then we'll close. So the first one is how do we get this app? Great question. I probably should have addressed that, but the different apps are available to you today. So if you were to go into Teams and click on basically the three dots, the ellipsis there, search for Viva Insights or Viva Learning or Connections, and you'll be able to get after the seated or the free version of those products today. For topics, there is only a premium or paid version, so that would require preliminary or a prerequisite, I guess, of licensing from your IT admin and from your organization to get access to. And then the second question we have is what does Viva Topics do? I think that's a good sign that I didn't explain it all that well. Viva Topics is sort of providing this Wikipedia network, this mapping, let's say, of all of the content, all of the documents, information, and expertise within your organization, right? So, and it does this automatically by applying AI across essentially your entire SharePoint library. All of the documents that are uploaded and stored in Teams and SharePoint folders, it gets a sense of what are those hubs, what are those central nodes of knowledge. It could be a project or an initiative, or maybe a commonly used acronym within your organization that represents something that's aligned to the industry you're in. And then once this node or this topic is identified, it creates a page for it, right? That would embed itself in Teams messages, emails, and PowerPoint documents, so that a reader or an audience member would be able to click on that and navigate and learn more about that topic. And then they would see affiliated documentation, as well as identified experts for that topic, right? So it's really helping sort of push information to the employee rather than requiring someone to know where to look and to find information that might be helpful as they want to understand a topic more clearly. Okay, well, I think that's it for questions, and really appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for watching, and have a good rest of the day. Thanks.